ShareYourStories.online, a community of business owners who believe in a foundation of mentorship and share their great ideas. I'm Trish Tonaj, founder and host for the series. And before we review the features for the website, I'd like to introduce you to our International Advisory Board, powerhouse entrepreneurs who believe in our core values to increase your visibility, encourage collaboration, and build connections in your community. Our website starts with feature stories in our guest blog, which are categorized by industry. A community store where you may feature specially priced products or services. Affiliate opportunities. A self-study library that features international speakers who share their expertise. And editorials. We remain connected through our informal mentorship program and quarterly networking events, featuring a guest speaker from the network. Participate in our Facebook Live, Business Mentorship Keeping It Real, with a catalog of interviews found in our library on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. It all starts with the guest blog. Click the icon in the top right-hand corner of your screen to complete the form, and we'll send the date your feature goes live as we share your story throughout social media. Visit our results page and read the comments from other business owners.
What a powerhouse community this is. So many women wanting to make a difference in the world and supporting each other to achieve that.
SYS and its spirit of collaboration over competition has been instrumental in enabling me to make some truly meaningful connections, both personally and professionally.
Share Your Stories Online is an awesome community. It supports entrepreneurial spirit, mentorship, and breaking barriers to success.
I so value her motto of collaboration without competition. It started with ShareYourStories.online, where I met people just like me, and I've been involved in her networking opportunities, whether they're virtual or in person, for some time. She has a community store, a self-study workshop series, and affiliate opportunities for all of us.
Join us as we connect with international business owners who celebrate their great ideas while we create a buzz about your biz. We look forward to featuring you and your business while we introduce the person behind the logo.
Enjoy us. Welcome, everyone, to Together We Serve TV show. I cut that off, but you can subscribe. I'm going to have my incredible host talk about that. But communities, together we serve. That's what communities do. A bunch of words that Trish talked about was collaboration, connection, joy, purpose. Some of those words you want to think about during the show today, because we all should be seeking that in communities. Can't do this alone. Anybody that tells me they can, I'm going to tell you they're lying. We need a tribe, a community of people that have the same thought process, same purpose we do. Let's bring our guest on. Maybe we'll bring her on. There she is. Whoa, technical difficulties we've got past them. Welcome to the show, Trish. I'm excited to have you on.
Thank you so much, Steve. I'm really looking forward to connecting with your audience.
I'm going to start with your buzzwords. And I think they're apropos in what you do. The first one is this: we create a buzz about your biz. What is that?
Well, we actually started that phrase because we share your feature story throughout social media. So we go to all the various links, we tag you on each post, because we want to talk a little bit more about what you do and how you serve the communities in which you live, work, and play. So that's really what Create a Buzz About Your Biz is. It's very hard for entrepreneurs to talk about themselves. And we really wanted to create an opportunity to sort of shine the light on all the great things that people are doing.
That's my mantra with every company. You take your clients, shine the light on them. I call highlight, promote them as much as you can. It's just bringing more value without any cost to them. It's just doing a good thing. The other one I really like a lot is together we are making a difference. One story at a time. Should be my tagline for the show, but talk about this.
Well, that's a really new tagline for us. So that just came about this spring once I won a global award for the platform, because I really do think that when we hear or read stories, I think that it helps inspire us to move outside our own comfort zone and explore some of the things that maybe we've been incubating and thinking about. Because you know what? It's really all about sharing great ideas. We all have really great ideas, but we don't have a business until we take action on that great idea. So I really do think that when we read feature stories and we hear people's voices talking about what it is that they do, it can inspire us to really make a difference.
Yeah. Let's start with the simple stories. Why does Trish, and say your last name again?
It's Tonaj, Trish Tonaj.
Tonaj. I never knew your last name until I saw that. Now I know. Trish Tonaj, when I share and introduce people to you. I want you to jump in stories. Why did you decide that be the theme of what you do?
So I had written my second book called Breaking Barriers, 10 Entrepreneurial Women Share Their Stories. And I was out on the speaker circuit talking about the importance of mentorship and role models. And I kept meeting so many awesome entrepreneurs who kept coming up to me and saying, Trish, I'd love to share my story. Well, we both know that you can't keep writing books. So I thought, how am I going to increase the visibility for these individual folks? And I decided to start a guest blog. So the guest blog was attached to my personal website for the first year, and we shared 100 stories. So that was really amazing. I thought, okay, we're on to something. I went to my web developer, purchased the URL shareyourstories.online. We mapped out how we wanted the website to look, and we automated the program to make it super easy for people from all over the world in order to be able to share their story.
It's interesting that you said you had to start with 100 stories. That's a lot of stories.
It is.
Where'd you find those people?
You know, they were people in my network. So, you know, throughout all our social media connections, we've connected with people on Facebook. And, you know, at that time, there was no Instagram. So it would be Facebook and LinkedIn. And I started getting referrals. So people would say, you know what, this was really a cool opportunity to increase the visibility of my business. How about if I introduce you to my friend? And so the rinse and repeat referral thing started to happen. And that's really how the platform has grown to over 400 stories worldwide.
Love the word ask, because you can't build a community unless you ask. Because what's the worst thing that can happen, Trish?
Well, you could say no, but no doesn't necessarily mean never. It just means not right now. So, you know, we've had lots of people who've taken a look at the platform and, you know, life gets busy, things are hectic, business is going crazy, and they think, I just can't do this right now. But they come back to us a few months later, and the next thing you know, their story pops up in my feed. And we're able to share the day that they go live, and then they join us on the podcast.
And I love that. That's and the invisible part. People are not invisible. You say that phrase again. You had said it earlier, and if you forgot, that's okay. It was a great phrase about being invisible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because, you know, small business owners really don't like to talk about themselves, right? I mean, we can very easily, I can talk about you, you can talk about me, but sometimes if we have to sit in front of an audience and talk about ourselves, we're a little apprehensive because we don't have a corporate culture, even a personal society culture, where talking about yourself is a good thing. Yeah. It's actually frowned upon, right? People are going to think you're bragging. So this was really an opportunity to increase the visibility of the people who were doing some really cool things around the world.
So I would think purpose and why are a big part, because I have no problem talking about what I do. I love my podcast like you love your podcast. We'll get into it in my TV show because we're highlighting, we're bringing value. Is that a big point of being able to people talk about their business?
I think so. You know, people really want to connect with customers and prospects. I think those individuals want to know a little bit more about the person behind the logo. We spend so much time creating these wonderful opportunities to show who we are and, you know, what our corporate colors are and talk about all of the various things that we do. But we don't necessarily get out from behind the logo and introduce the person who has the great idea. And that's really what the platform is all about, is increasing the visibility of the business owner who may have a team behind them, who may have a whole, you know, administration, admin, but they never really get to meet the business owner. And I think in today's day and age, we really want to know more about the person behind the logo.
It's not magic, folks. That sound came out. It popped out because it's not. It's anybody can do this, right, Trish?
Well, anybody can do it if you want to be consistent, if you want to have a mission, purpose, and vision. Because, doing what we do in terms of being podcast hosts is a huge commitment. I mean, Steve, you've got over 700 episodes and I have over 225. And there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes to coordinate the guests, to ensure that we highlight the guests and show all their wonderful qualities. That's really the purpose of being a great host, is being able to ensure that your guest looks amazing. And that's really a skill that you acquire through time. And right. I think that, you do that really well on your podcast. And I certainly get lots of compliments from people after they've spent some time with us on our podcast.
Will you open the door? I was going to go there, but I'm going to go early because Keeping It Real podcast is such a cool name.
Thank you.
You hear that, makes you smile. Keeping It Real. I'm going to keep it real. How'd the concept come about? What's the goal and mission of the podcast?
So the mission of the podcast really is to give people an opportunity to share in their own worlds, their own brand of magic. That's why we call it Keeping It Real. Sometimes business is not all a bed of roses, right? There are hurdles we have to overcome. We are breaking barriers in our own individual industries or maybe in our communities. And so Keeping It Real gives people an opportunity to really share the blood, sweat, and tears that they put into their own business, and also a little bit about what happens behind the scenes. Because the front-facing people that we show to our customers and prospects, that's polished. We spend a lot of time making sure that what we share is polished. But in Keeping It Real, we really want to introduce the person and a little bit of the personality of the person who has the great idea.
I get to ask this question all the time. I'm going to ask you, I know it's a tough question. What's one or two of your favorite stories that you've had on your podcast?
That's a really hard one. You're absolutely right, because there's so many great ones. I have to say, I've been in business since 1993, so that's over 3 decades. And every single story that I read and every single podcast that I share, I learn something from the individual that I'm speaking with. And I think that there's just as many wonderful people around the globe doing so many amazing things. I can't honestly say that I can pick one, because there's just so many that are so cool. Sometimes you have a symbiotic connection with the person. Like lots of times, you and I have never met face to face. We've met on a thumbnail, but we never have the opportunity to see each other. And so the connection is virtual, really. And sometimes you just have an amazing connection and the conversation just goes off the charts. But you just never know if that's going to happen until you're there.
Yeah. The question I ask myself when people ask me that question is, what's one show that shocked you, that went in a story that you never thought would come out of that person?
Wow.
If there is one.
I don't think there really is one where I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that, because we really use the guest blog. So what people share in their guest blog is the information that we're using for the foundation for our conversation. And, to your point, we never know where the conversation is going to go. I mean, a great podcast host is going to take the little tidbits of information that they get from their guest and expand on that to the next question. And that's really what makes it Keeping It Real, right? Especially if they're live and unscripted, or even if they're recorded and unscripted. People don't really know exactly what the question is we're going to ask. And so the answers that we get maybe take us in a different direction based on the story that they've shared. But I can't honestly say that I've had anybody sort of drop a real something out of the ordinary, because to be quite honest, after 200 episodes, there's probably nothing we haven't already heard in terms of the breaking of barriers that people have to go through, right?
Yeah. I have one podcast where it was Forbes Riley. I'm going to say who it was. She's a multi-billionaire, and her husband came in shirtless, didn't know she was on a podcast. Kissed her on the forehead. Hey, I'm on the podcast. I left, said hello, said hi. But that takes back to what you're saying about these podcasts, keeping it real. That's why I love it. That's all a podcast is. Yeah. That's a long cheer, crowd. Okay, that's it. love that they're cheering, because what you said was very, and you host out there, TV, podcast, radio, what doesn't matter, unscripted.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, because let it go with the direction it goes. It makes for a great show.
Yeah.
So another question we got, which I really like, is how do you select guests for your platform? I know you use the blog. Is there any other things that you do?
Trusted referrals. Because, in today's day and age, there are a lot of people doing a lot of great things, but sometimes we don't know where they are or how to find them. And, I have used social media platforms where, somebody's comment or story has come up in my feed and I think, wow, that's pretty cool. I'll reach out to them. And then the next thing you know, they share their story on the guest blog and then they become part of the podcast. But it really is all about trusted referrals.
Yeah, I love that. That's how I got 350 of my 700 shows, probably more than that. And same for you. Mm-hmm. And get another $1 million tip. She's going to make you about $10 million today while you're listening. Because people ask me all the time, where do I find guests? Just ask. Mm-hmm. Hey, Joe Smith, do you know somebody that fits my podcast? I love a referral. And you'll come in like there's no tomorrow. Especially now, maybe 2 years ago was a little difficult, but everybody knows podcasts and those type of things.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you would tell somebody as a new podcast host they shouldn't do?
Don't try to trip up your guest. Your job as a podcast host is to make your guest look spectacular, share their brand and magic, and ensure that they feel really good about the experience. And I think we've all been listened to podcasts where, unfortunately, the podcast host maybe takes the guest into the wrong direction and doesn't know how to right the wrong. And those things can be embarrassing and humiliating. And nobody wants that. I mean, we all want to shine a light on all the great things that people are doing. Life is tough enough. We're looking for inspirational stories that give us a little bit of motivation to step outside our own comfort zone. So I really think as a podcast host, you have to be confident in the things that you believe in, have a connection with your guest, whether it be the story that they're telling or the topic that you're going to be discussing, in order to really bring their own brand and magic to light.
Love it, love it. She can tell she's an expert. She's teaching me, and I've done 700 shows. When you've done more than 50, you're pretty darn good at a podcast, because most people are quitting at 15 now. I actually talked to a guy yesterday. Sometimes 2 or 3 people quit because they just don't. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of things in life, unfortunately, that we quit. Don't podcasting, and we won't get into that. But I want to get into shareyourstories.online. Mm-hmm. It's such an impactful community, but what are you so proud of with that?
I really think that having a community of like-minded individuals who come together in the spirit of supporting one another, I developed the community not to sell. So it's not a place to sell your product or service. It's your place to find out information that may help you grow your business and to support other entrepreneurs who are in the same place as you. So that's how we end up finding, there's great collaboration that happens. We've got people all over the world that are collaborating, joining together with their own thought leadership. They're maybe doing seminars or workshops together. They're hosting live events together. They're helping each other make their businesses grow. And I really think that's the important part of the community, is that we really are all about supporting one another. And, I have to say, that wasn't always the case, right? We didn't always have platforms where we could meet people and say, hey, I know somebody that may be interested in your product or service. And then you send them a referral. The old-fashioned networking events where, we got together for breakfast meetings or cocktails at the end of the day, those kind of went away for a few years. We had to find a new way to connect. And that's really the beauty of the online communities, because we can bring people in from all over the world. I mean, we usually get 5 different countries that participate in our online networking events, and they're only quarterly. Because let's face it, if you get 3 or 4 good leads, that can lead to a whole lot of business.
Yeah, it's a numbers game. 3 lead to 9, 9 lead to 18, and it goes down and it goes on.
Yeah.
With community, how should people approach your community or any community like you have? Because there's a number of great ones out there, and that we've talked about it. Mm-hmm. But how do they show up?
That's a really important piece, because I think how you show up is what you put in is what you're going to get out. So if your purpose of joining a community is to network with like-minded individuals, then you got to do a little bit of research about the community to make sure that their vision and mission align with yours. Because nobody has time, whether it's in person or online, to waste with, showing up for community events where you're not going to get the same purpose or mission. So we always have our events are usually a small number of people. So they're usually less than 50, because how else are you going to meet people and make heartfelt connections or make referrals if you don't have an opportunity to meet everyone? I mean, I don't attend networking events where there's hundreds of people because I'm never going to meet everybody. And I may miss a great connection because there's no way to introduce myself to that large number of people in a group.
Yeah, it's powerful. And you've got a book. We'll get to the book in the second half, but challenges. What have you faced in your journey that really you've learned from that the audience can learn from as well?
You know what? I think the first thing that I had to learn when I became an entrepreneur is that you're going to fail. And that failure is a good thing because the failure takes you closer to the next success. So whether it's failing at your first sales pitch, whether it's failing and being able to meet the demands of the product or service that you're providing, all of those things take you closer to developing a process that works for you. And I really do think that the mindset around failure is a difficult one for an entrepreneur because you're so excited about what it is that you're doing. And you have so much enthusiasm when you're doing your first sales pitch. And then you get that no and you think, oh, I wasn't expecting a no. I was expecting an order, or I was expecting a connection. But so you have to be able to overcome some of those obstacles, and there's going to be lots of them throughout your career. And it's how you sort of go with the flow, I think, that really makes you successful in whatever it is you're doing.
Let's come right back to your community. That's where the community helps.
Yeah.
You've been through 3 decades. You'd somebody to go to, hey, I've run into this problem. Why recreate the wheel? Trish, you've been through it over 30 years.
Yeah.
Or me, 25, 30 years as well, or anybody that's out there. Yeah, it's hard to get mentorship from somebody that's just starting out. Nothing wrong because we have to start somewhere, but you got to go somewhere that people have experienced it. Now, you talked about your group, and I love what you said. Everybody grows.
Mm-hmm.
Now, right away, people, when I talk to them, go to money. I went from $50,000 a month to $100,000. I want you to talk about growth in your community because I think that's important. It's just not money.
When it can't always be about the money because, the money is short-lived. If your purpose for being in business if your primary goal is just money, then I would venture to guess that it's not going to last for the 3 decades or 4 decades that you may be looking for to enjoy a career. You're going to have to try to find different ways in which to make connections with your community. And I think that's really all about whether it's your community in your own backyard or whether it's a global community. Connecting with like-minded individuals gives you an opportunity to grow not only your business, but perhaps opens doors to new opportunities that you haven't thought of and helps us as people to grow. Because, I'm not the same person I was when I started my business 30 years ago. I'm sure you're not either. So, we all want to evolve and develop as humans. I started Philanthropy as part of my business model 8 years ago. Well, I'd already been in business for over 25 years at that point. So I was looking for what's next? What's the next chapter? What's the next step? So Philanthropy was my next step in my next chapter because I had been blessed with a successful career. And I really and truly appreciated the people who had helped me along the way, who were all behind the scenes, right? I mean, we don't usually have live conversations with our mentors or role models. Those are all people who are doing things behind the scenes. So Philanthropy for me was the give back to the entrepreneurial community because I know how hard it is to start that business with $1 in your wallet and a great idea.
That's a great phrase. $1 in your wallet and a great idea. I love the growth thing because, our growth pattern was a little flatter. There's my camera. Because we started 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Now was white, was rounder. Because we had to learn, and fail, and then learn. Now we can do, and mentors can do, is flatten that curve, correct?
Absolutely. Well, I always say when I'm speaking, I say to folks, and it shows my age, but when I started my first business, there were no laptop computers, there were no cell phones, and there was no Google. So when you think about that, everything that we did was manual. You really had to use your own brain power, your own intuition, your own curiosity, your own thinking outside the box, because information was not readily available.
Yep. My dad was a contractor. It's so funny you say that because it's so true. It ages us, but that's okay. My dad was a contractor in the 60s and 70s. There was no cell phones. He had to drive job to job. And he finally got a fax machine, and that was like the biggest technology because now people could fax contracts. He didn't have to go there and sign, that type of thing. Yeah. But it's going to happen today. AI's come in the last couple of years. Same thing. What happened 5 years ago was much different than today.
Absolutely.
I love this. What's one thing you would tell somebody listening that says, I want to be an entrepreneur, that they need to do first thing?
I think you need to have a reserve fund in the bank, because the likelihood of making money when you're right out of the gate is going to be a little bit more difficult than you may think. So whenever I was speaking or mentoring other entrepreneurs who were just starting out, I used to say, before you take the leap and hang up the shingle, have at least 3 months of your expenses covered in the bank, so that you've got a little bit of confidence and a little bit of leeway, so that if it takes time before the revenue starts to flow in, you know that you've got your expenses are covered and you and your family are going to be safe, and you're going to be able to meet those day-to-day living expenses that we all have. And that usually gives you enough confidence to hang out the shingle and start a new business.
To help with obstacles. And it reminds me of when I talk to mentors, especially these days, people want to quit their job. I've got this greatest idea in the world. I'm going to quit my $150,000 job and jump right into it. No, right? Start part-time. Do work on the weekends, work at nights. Well, I don't want to do that. I'm so excited. I understand you're excited, but
it takes time. 97% of the stories that we share are from corporate leaders who have taken the leap to business owner. So they acquired their skills and experience somewhere else in a JOB. I mean, I had a JOB too before I hung out my own shingle. But you need to acquire the skills that you're going to need in order to be successful, because the great idea will only take you so far. There's so much, as you know, that happens behind the scenes. How do you send out an invoice? If you don't have a bricks and mortar location, or you don't have an online platform that is going to take the money for you, how do you even send out an invoice? I mean, those are things and skills that you're going to have to teach yourself, or not likely out of the gate in the first 6 months are you going to be able to hire someone. So you're going to be the chief cook and bottle washer for the first little while. And then once you start to gain some confidence and build up the bank account, then you can try to introduce people into the fold that are going to help you achieve your level of success.
Have you ever told someone they shouldn't be an entrepreneur?
Yes, I have.
Okay, this is a tough question. I've done that too.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard because someone's passion. Exactly. Right? And they're bubbling over with enthusiasm. And then you think, oh dear, that's going to take a lot more research than maybe, or it's going to take a lot more behind the scenes work before you're going to be able to launch that idea. And you know what? I think we all get caught up in the stories, especially the tech stories, because tech is the thing that's been, the driving force in business for at least the last 10 years. And we hear about these people who they were working in their parents' basement on some program, right? And then some big tech giant comes along and gives them $1 bazillion for their program. Well, bless you. I'm so glad that happened. But do you know how many other people are still sitting in the basement working on the program that have not been able to take their great idea out to the world? So it does take a lot of ingenuity. And sometimes it's timing. It's not the right time, personally or professionally, to launch that great idea. So I think that you need to be a little cognizant of how much time it will take, and have a backup plan, have a plan B, because we all need a plan B. Listen, I even have a plan B. After being in business for 34 years, I'm now officially semi-retired. but I still had to plan for that event.
Yeah. No, it's Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs come to mind. Everybody wants to be that house in Cupertino, which is near where I live, and I've driven by. Like, I could do that. Yeah, 1%, maybe a 0.5% of people make it like that.
Yeah.
And even if you made it to where your business is doing $1 million a year, and you put in 150,000, I mean, I know everybody's expenses, but that's success. You don't need to be Apple. You could be Steve Ramona's cell phone, right?
You know what I say is you need to pick a number. So whatever number you are trying to achieve to give yourself the lifestyle and the freedom that you choose, that's going to be a different number for each individual. For some, it may be 50,000. For somebody else, it may be 100,000. Someone else might say, oh, I'm not doing it if I don't take home $250,000. But that definition of success is based on your personal preference. You know, you could have a hugely successful business and maybe your sales are less than 100,000, but you are so happy because you're being able to do the things that you wanted to do. You're achieving your objective with your great idea. So I come from a place of no judgment, and I say, you know what, whatever your number is exclusive to you. Just enjoy what it is that you're doing.
It's a perfect segue into our halftime because it's so true. Don't compare yourself to others. Mentor or mentee others. Yeah. Learn from them, and then what you learn, give back to others, which you do so well. And that's why I love you so much, is you're so out there helping other people. So let's give her a break. I can't believe time flew by so fast because she's so wonderful. We'll take about a 5-6 minute break. We'll come back and talk about her book. Excited to talk about that. So we'll be right back. Well, Trish Tonaj awards. I can't wait to ask her about the Duchess of York, if she got to meet her. Looks like she got to meet her, but women or men, doesn't matter. When you're out there serving, that's what happens. That's the outcome. Awards, but more importantly, collaboration. I'm sure all those ladies got together to serve each other, to grow and grow others. And that's the power of what we do. We try to do, and we should be doing every day. Let's bring our wonderful guest back. There she is, Trish. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Turn the music off. That jazz will put me rested.
Great jazz.
It is, isn't it?
It was great jazz.
Duchess of York, did you get to meet her?
I didn't actually get to meet her, but we were in the room. So there were lots of requirements, obviously, for someone who is a public figure such as the Duchess of York. But she's the brand ambassador for the organization to which I received the silver for Business of the Year. And last year I was the winner for the Leader of the Year in the Americas. So it was a wonderful opportunity to get together from women from around the world. There were 55 countries that were at the event. And those folks who won gold or were the actual winners in the various different categories did get to meet the Duchess of York. But as you can imagine, there were so many people in the room vying for her attention. I didn't have an opportunity to meet her in person.
What a cool opportunity, well deserved, and getting that award. How did it make you feel?
I have to say, if you want to go back to when you were nominated, so I was nominated by one of the ladies from within our community for the Leader of the Year. Actually, she's from California, Shelley Goldstein, who's the founder of Remarkable Speaking. And she actually nominated me for the award. And when I received the nomination email, I thought, oh, geez, this has got to be a joke. I mean, this can't honestly be real. And then I started to read through all the information, and I saw Shelley's name, and I thought, holy cow, this must be real. I know Shelley. And so I accepted the nomination, and then I couldn't, unfortunately, go to that award ceremony. It was in New York City. So I attended through Facebook. It was a Facebook Live. And I have to say, when they called my name, I was absolutely shocked. But I can tell you, the result of winning Leader of the Year has driven an average of 4,500 people to our website every week since last October.
It's powerful. And we're going to do a little personal thing. Did Shelley Goldstein introduce me to you? Because I know her very well.
No. Hirsch Repune, who's on my advisory board, introduced us. Yes.
I know Shelley. She's been on my podcast twice.
Oh, wow, that's wild. Well, I nominated her for the Global Awards. There were 5 women that I nominated, and I was nominated by one of the sponsors in the Share Your Story grant program, who asked to be anonymous, and we all won. We all won either silver, and Susan Crossman, who is an editor, and she actually was the editor for my first book. She won gold in the category of Women in Literature Global. So that was the most amazing experience, because the 6 of us went. We never expected that we would win. We were going to collaborate. We were going for the energy experience of meeting all these wonderful women from around the world. And it was really quite exciting for all of us to have left with a trophy.
Well, audience, this is a real life Why Together We Serve works. We have Shelley, both know Shelley from a different group, but networking, connecting, bringing value to people, because that's the only reason you're going to refer somebody is they brought value, they've done something. Let me say this the right way. When you feel good about something like we did when we first met, I sent you referrals, you sent me referrals. That's what happens. We're in the people business.
Yep.
We don't take care of people, business doesn't grow. Flat out. They can argue with me with that, but they're not going to win that argument, because it's all about the people. So that's great. I can't wait to reach out to Shelley and tell her that you're on my show. I'm very, very excited to talk about your book, because I love, love, love what you've done. Let's dive into the book, what you've done, what's it all about, and those type of things.
So I wrote Breaking Barriers, 10 Entrepreneurial Women Share Their Stories as a result of being at an executive education program at Harvard Law School Negotiation Institute, believe it or not. I had the pleasure of being in a room with 48 other people from around the world, and we were all taking a course in mediation and dispute resolution. And as a result of attending that course, I realized the power of mentorship, because every single person I spoke to talked about someone at some place or some time who had had a huge impact on their career and on them as an individual. And I left that particular course and I thought, wow, mentorship is clearly really very powerful. And I think it's going to become more powerful as the years go by. So I came back from that executive education program. I contacted 10 entrepreneurial women that I knew. Some of them were referrals, some I knew personally, and wrote the book, Breaking Barriers. And since then, I had no idea at that time that attending that course and writing that book was really going to be the catalyst of the future for me. And everything that I have done since in the last 10 years has come from that idea and taking the leap of faith to write the book.
And if I remember, I'm going to leave that up so people can see it. It's from different industries. It's not all business coaches. It's not all financial advisors, right?
No, we have 10 different backgrounds. So we've got a funeral director. We've got a landscape architect. We've got a financial planner. We had a business coach. We have an athlete, a Olympic athlete. So we have someone from the clothing retail industry. So each of us came from a totally different background. And shared stories about, we have 100 questions you need to ask yourself before you decide to be an entrepreneur in the book. So there's lots of practical tools that we included. We have a restaurateur in there as well, a restaurant and hotel owner. So we all came from very different places. The age span, I think the youngest entrepreneur in our group at that time would have been in her 30s. And the most mature entrepreneur in the group would have been in their 60s. And we were sort of every age in between.
So powerful. It's amazing. Men can read this book too. It's just you picked women probably because you're a woman. Doesn't matter. But this relates for both men and women, right?
Absolutely. And I've had many men read the book. I mean, even on our platform, we have 25% of the stories are from men. You shared your story on our platform, for which I'm very grateful. But there is a reason why I picked women, Steve. And I have to share, it's because women have had very few successful role models. When I started my business in the early 90s, I was a complete maverick. There were we still have less than 2% of the CEOs in Fortune 500 companies are female. And that's for a whole lot of different reasons. But I really wanted to highlight that because we have women in the book who had children, we have women in the book who decided not to have families. I really wanted people to be able to read the stories, keeping it real stories about some of the challenges and the barriers that they had to break in order to be successful.
Well, I'm out there as a proponent that women are taking over business. And I love women mentors that I have. You're one of them. And I'm glad you did that because I think it's 4% of all speakers out there are women. Maybe it's higher now. I know it was really low. Doesn't matter male or female, the story is unique. We can learn from somebody's story. Now, if it dives into female or male situations, that's different, meaning maybe physical or whatever. That's a whole different scenario. But you went through a challenge of, let's say, you were slow on sales and you did this thing to build your sales. Why can't it work for Steve Ramon the man? It can't.
Absolutely. And you know what? I always say mentors defy all the barriers. It doesn't matter what age, what, religion, what ethnicity, what gender you are. the information is universal. So if I've learned one thing from sharing over 400 entrepreneurial stories is that we're all different and yet the same.
Yeah.
You know, I may have a sales challenge at a different time than you, but I may have a marketing tip that can help you, and you may have a sales tip that can help me.
Yeah. What's interesting too, I get this question a lot. Not a lot, but I've heard it. How can a story be an ROI for me, for my business?
Oh, that's a really easy one. Because return on investment is being able to take a marketing asset and turn it into a connection. And your story gives you an opportunity to make a connection with a potential client, with a prospect, with someone who can send you a referral. The actual monetization of your story happens based on the number of people who hear it or read it or share it.
I love that. And it qualifies people too. You share your story and they don't resonate. That's another check in the box. Like, oh, I understand, Steve. I don't like this serving thing. And that's fine. It's not for everybody. But qualified that I don't want to work with you.
It also gives you credibility. Because let's face it, when we hang out our shingle for the first year, we're as green as they come. It doesn't matter how much business experience you have. When you hand out that business card, you're green to the person that you're giving it to, because they don't know who is behind that logo. They don't know anything about you. You may have the greatest business card going. It may be flashy. It has all the right, buzzwords and all the right colors, but nobody knows who you are. And so it adds to your credibility when I say Steve is an awesome podcast host, he's a great connector. I'm going to connect you with Steve because I bet you'll get a referral from Steve. There's nothing better than that.
And that's a story. You just told a story of me. Like, you have this great community of sharing your stories. I've told people the same thing. One guy goes, I don't believe in stories. Then Trish isn't for you.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, but we're not going that route. And that's okay.
Yep.
I forget the old phrase.
Well, you don't want to be all things to all people.
There you go.
It's impossible.
You don't need to be. There's 300 million people. Let's say there's 200 million Americans, adult Americans. I don't need 200 million to be quite happy financially, purpose-wise, and why-wise.
No, absolutely not.
So cool. We're coming to the end here. How can people find you?
Well, I'm actually pretty easy to find, just like you. This wonderful platform that we have called Google. And you mentioned earlier even about AI. I put my own name into AI. I was pretty surprised at what came out. So there's always really amazing ways that we can connect. All of the social platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We all have websites. ShareYourStories.online. We have contact pages on our websites. So there are really wonderful in many ways you can connect with me. And I have my own personal rule that within 48 hours, you will receive a response to a message that you send to me, whether it's on a social platform or you send it directly to my email. And we'll make a connection and see where it goes.
Yeah, I love it. You make it simple. Leaders make it simple. We don't make it hard. The harder you make it, the less you can lead, I think. Let's end with a fun question. It's going to be hard for you, but I asked in the podcast in a little different way. So I've reserved a Learjet, very fancy Learjet. It's going to fly anywhere you want to fly. 4 seats are available. You're sitting in one of them. And the 3 empty seats, who would you invite to fly with you, dead or alive?
Okay.
Where would the destination be?
The destination would probably have to be in Europe, because I really love the culture and the history and the architecture in Europe. So my favorite city would be Paris. So the destination would be Paris. And the people that I would invite, my inspirational mentor was Coco Chanel, who happened to live in Paris. So she would be one of the people that I would invite. The second person I would invite would actually be my mom, because she's been my biggest cheerleader. And so I would invite her to join us on this amazing trip. And then the third person I would invite, ooh, it's getting harder. The first two are easy. The last two are hard, right?
It always is.
I would have to say it's the woman who started the Champagne Veuve Clicquot.
Whoa.
She's
Okay.
actually a champion. She broke a lot of barriers, and she became an entrepreneur at a time when there was definitely barriers to break. So I would love to hear more about her story. So that would be the third. And the last and final person, holy cannolis. Wow. You know, believe it or not, it wouldn't be a person, to be quite honest. It would be my Scottish Terrier, who I dedicated my first book to, and who seriously was a lifeline to sanity for quite a few years for me. When the going was tough and the tough got going, my little Scotty was there right beside me, giving me the inspiration to keep moving forward.
That's the first animal somebody's invited. I've never thought about that, but that's okay, because I love dogs. My dog's outside waiting for me right now.
Yeah.
Unconditional love is the best. Hey, audience, first, Trish, thank you. With all the technical difficulties, you're a blessing. God, I love you so much because you care. You know, people go, oh, she's super successful. And then, hey, Steve, you're becoming successful. We should care more, meaning we should be able to, because now we have the ability to support. Abundance leads to giving more. And you do that so well. Audience, reach out to her. Go to share your stories online. Check it out. You're going to love it. I'm part of it, but there's many, many great people part of it. My friend Hirsch, shout out to you, Hirsch. Thank you for making the introduction. We'll see you guys all next Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, for Together We Serve. Let's do it with love. Let's do it with empathy. And let's do it with the most enthusiasm we can. You all have a great day, everyone.